So it seems that executive function has to be lowered somewhat, otherwise it gets in the way of creativity, which makes sense because executive function is daily planning and goals and things, and we kind of need to drop our personal goals in order to have access to information beyond that, to new ideas, new information, new thoughts, which aren't part of the old structure. So I'm wondering if at some point, though, the executive functioning drops too low. And I feel like this is what could have happened to me, because I was going along fine, being creative and still functioning, and then I felt, and I was talking about this process of that slowing down and feeling like, okay, now I can't really do anything, I'm just sitting here. So the other thing about executive function is it's part of consensus reality. It's what allows people to operate and be quote unquote successful in consensus reality, but that needs to lower in order to have access to creativity. So it's a trade-off, and perhaps it would be a worthwhile trade-off if that creative energy was utilized. So that was the point of this study too, was that mania had worse executive function than mixed states and depression in bipolar people. So I feel part of executive function, and I don't know that much about it, could be that it's about me and my motives and what I need to do, whereas mania and that higher energy renders that me lesser. So the me and my motives and what I need to do and my planning and my thoughts needs to lessen in order to have access to another source of information. So this is where I wonder, does the executive function bottom out as a control mechanism, in that one can't use all the creative energy for one's own plans? And then I look for a definition of divergent thinking from Wiki, and it says, divergent thinking is a thought process or method used to generate creative ideas by exploring many possible solutions. So what if one could have a business for generating creative ideas? A lot of different businesses need creative ideas, but sometimes it's challenging to generate them. And creativity is one of the biggest needs, and it's also hard to come by. And then it was interesting on the wiki page that it said that divergent thinkers often have certain personality traits like nonconformity, curiosity, willingness to take risks, and persistence. And so to me, it seems like what we are in thought, if we're divergent thinkers, is mirrored in our behaviors as well. So what we are in thought, like if somebody's in mania, they're having divergent thoughts, for example, and they're also likely not conforming, they're taking risks, they're curious. So it seems to me like it's challenging to be a certain way in mind without that trickling up all the way to the behavioral level. And my brain twin mentioned efficiency in life as one of the things that happens in so-called mania. And I feel there could be a certain efficiency that's happening in the brain too, in that there's more energy. So most people have conformity in thinking. So if they conform, they're also conforming in their thinking. and they're not willing to take risks in their thinking. And there was a study in kids mentioned in this wiki article about how certain kids were playful and they were more divergent thinkers. So playful was defined as physically, socially, and cognitively spontaneous, with a manifest joy and a sense of humor, which sounds kind of like mania, which I feel is a return to a childlike state. So with an elevated mood, one can perform better in divergent thinking tasks, and that would be related to how in mania we have a very, very elevated mood, so we can think divergently. And I think that's partly what would make us live divergently, is that we're behaving divergently and we're thinking divergently. So during that time, we're living divergently. So I wonder, actually, if creating divergent thinking can elevate mood. If elevated mood leads to increased divergent thinking, can increased divergent thinking lead to elevated mood? So I'm wondering if one could keep a notebook of one's favorite divergent thoughts that one has created and sort of expound or extrapolate on that in order to improve mood. So maybe that could be called CDT, Creative Divergent Thinking. So maybe part of what we do is find and create possible solutions. So that's when I wrote down, maybe there is no solution to bipolar disorder, but bipolar is the solution, and that we are good at creating possible solutions and possibilities. So people could hire or contract creative divergent thinkers or a team of them. So instead of focusing on trying to fix it, trying to do something with its content